Hello, welcome to another video of Adhvaitha. In this video, we will look at another teaching that was given to us by Swami Vivekananda on the topic of soul, God and religion. This is one of the most interesting topics that there is for most people out there, because understanding the concept of soul is nothing but understanding ourselves at the deepest level. So let's look at today's topic, soul, God and religion, and let's look at his speech. Through the vistas of the past, the voice of the centuries is coming down to us. The voice of the sages of the Himalayas and the recluses of the forest, the voice that spoke through Buddha and other spiritual giants, the voice that comes from those who live in the light that accompanied man in the beginning of the earth, the light that shines wherever man goes and lives with him forever, is coming to us even now. This voice is like the little rivulets that come from the mountains. Now they disappear, and now they appear again in stronger flow till finally they unite in one mighty majestic flood. The messages that are coming down to us from the prophets and holy men and women of all sects and nations are joining their forces and speaking to us with the trumpet voice of the past. And the first message it brings to us is, "Peace be unto you and to all religions." It is not a message of antagonism, but of one united religion. Let us study this message first. At the beginning of the century, it was almost feared that religion was at the end. Under the tremendous sledgehammer blows of scientific research, old superstitions were crumbling away like masses of porcelain. Those to whom religion meant only a bundle of creeds and meaningless ceremonials were in despair. They were at their wits' end. Everything was slipping between their fingers. For a time, it seemed inevitable that the surging tide of agnosticism and materialism would sweep all before it. There were those who did not dare utter what they thought. Many thought the case hopeless and the cause of religion lost once and forever. But the tide has turned, and to the rescue has come what? The study of comparative religions. By the study of different religions, we find that in essence they are one. When I was a boy, this skepticism reached me, and it seemed for a time as if I must give up all hope of religion. But fortunately for me, I studied the Christian religion, the Mohammedan, the Buddhist and others. And what was my surprise to find that the same foundation principles taught by my religion were also taught by all religions. It appealed to me this way. What is the truth? I asked. Is this world true? Yes. Why? Because I see it. Are the beautiful sounds we just heard true? Yes, because we heard them. We know that man has a body, eyes and ears, and he has a spiritual nature which we cannot see. And with his spiritual faculties, he can study these different religions and find that whether a religion is taught in the forests and jungles of India or in a Christian land, in essentials, all religions are one. This only shows us that religion is a constitutional necessity of the human mind. The proof of one religion depends on the proof of all the rest. For instance, if I have 6 fingers and no one else has, you may well say that is abnormal. The same reasoning may be applied to the argument that only one religion is true and all others false. One religion only, like one set of 6 fingers in the world, would be unnatural. We see therefore that if one religion is true, all others must be true. There are differences in non-essentials, but in essentials, they are all one, like the body, a part that is immutable, eternal, that never dies. But some of the later religions teach that although there is a part of us that never dies, it had a beginning. But anything that has a beginning must necessarily have an end. We, the essential part of us, never had a beginning and will never have an end. And above us all, above this eternal nature, there is another eternal being without end, God. People talk about the beginning of the world, the beginning of man. The word beginning simply means that the beginning of the cycle. It nowhere means the beginning of the whole cosmos. It is impossible that creation could have a beginning. No one of you can imagine a time of beginning. That which has a beginning must have an end. Never did I not exist, nor you, nor will any of us ever hereafter cease to be, says the Bhagavad Gita. Wherever the beginning of creation is mentioned, it means the beginning of a cycle. Your body will meet with death, but your soul never. Along with this idea of the soul, we find another group of ideas in regard to its perfection. The soul in itself is perfect. The Old Testament of the Hebrews admits man perfect at the beginning. Man made himself impure by his own actions, but he is to regain his old nature, his pure nature. Some speak of these things in allegories, fables and symbols. But when we begin to analyze these statements, we find that they all teach that the human soul is in its very nature perfect and that man is to regain that original purity. How? By knowing God. Just as the Bible says, no man can see God but through the Son. What is meant by it? That seeing God is the aim and goal of all human life. The sonship must come before we become one with the Father. Remember that man lost his purity through his own actions. When we suffer, it is because of our own acts. God is not to be blamed for it. Closely connected with these ideas, which was universal before the Europeans mutilated it, the doctrine of reincarnation. Some of you may have heard of and ignored it. This idea of reincarnation runs parallel with the other doctrine of the eternity of the human soul. Nothing which ends at one point can be without a beginning, and nothing that begins at one point can be without an end. We cannot believe in such a monstrous impossibility as the beginning of the human soul. The doctrine of reincarnation asserts the freedom of the soul. Suppose there was an absolute beginning, then the whole burden of this impurity in man falls upon God, the all-merciful Father responsible for the sins of the world. If sin comes in this way, why should one suffer more than another? Why such partiality? If it comes from all-merciful God, why are millions trampled underfoot? Why do people starve who never did anything to cause it? Who is responsible? If they had no hand in it, surely God would be responsible. Therefore, the better explanation is that one is responsible for the miseries one suffers. If I set the wheel in motion, I am responsible for the result. And if I can bring misery, I can also stop it. It necessarily follows that we are free. There is no such thing as fate. There is nothing to compel us. Whatever we have done, that we can undo. To one argument in connection with this doctrine, I will ask your patient attention, as it is a little intricate. We gain all our knowledge through experience. That is the only way. What we call experiences are on the plane of consciousness. For illustration, a man plays a tune on a piano. He places each finger on each key consciously. He repeats this process till the movement of his fingers becomes a habit. He then plays a tune without having to pay special attention to each particular key. Similarly, we find in regard to ourselves that our tendencies are the result of past conscious action. A child is born with certain tendencies. Whence do they come? No child is born with a tabula rasa, with a clean blank page of mind. The page has been written on previously. The old Greek and Egyptian philosophers taught that no child came with a vacant mind. Each child comes with 100 tendencies generated by past conscious actions. It did not acquire these in this life, and we are bound to admit that it must have had them in the past lives. The rankest materialist has to admit that these tendencies are the result of past actions. Only they add that these tendencies came through heredity. Our parents, grandparents and great-grandparents came down to us through this law of heredity. Now, if heredity alone explains this, there is no necessity of believing in the soul at all, because body explains everything. We need not go into the different arguments and discussions on materialism and spiritualism. So far, the way is clear for those who believe in the individual soul. we see that to come to a reasonable conclusion, we must admit that we have had past lives. This is the belief of great philosophers and sages of the past and of modern times. Such a doctrine was believed in among the Jews. Jesus Christ believed in it. He says in the Bible, before Abraham was, I am. And in another place it is said, this is Elias who is said to have come. All the different religions which grew among different nations under varying circumstances and conditions had their origin in Asia, and the Asiatics understand them well. When they came out from the motherland, they got mixed up with errors. The most profound and noble ideas of Christianity were never understood in Europe because the ideas and images used by the writers of the Bible were foreign to it. Take for illustration the pictures of the Madonna. Every artist paints his Madonna according to his own preconceived ideas. I have been seeing hundreds of pictures of the Last Supper of Jesus Christ, and he is made to sit at a table. Now Christ never sat at a table. He squatted with others and they had a bowl in which they dipped bread. Not the kind of bread you eat today. It is hard for any nation to understand the unfamiliar customs of other people. How much more difficult was it for Europeans to understand the Jewish customs after centuries of changes and assertions from Greek, Roman and other sources? Through all the myths and mythologies by which it is surrounded, it is never no wonder that the people get very little of the beautiful religion of Jesus. And no wonder that they have made of it a modern shopkeeping religion. To come to our point, we find that all religions teach the eternity of the soul, as well as that its luster has been dimmed and that its primitive purity is to be regained by the knowledge of God. What is the idea of God in these different religions? The primary idea of God was very vague. The most ancient nations had different deities, sun, earth, fire, water, etc. Among the ancient Jews, we find the numbers of these gods ferociously fighting with each other. Then we find Elohim, whom the Jews and the Babylonians worshipped. We next find one God standing supreme, but the idea differed according to different tribes. They each asserted that their God was the greatest, and they tried to prove it by fighting. The one that could do the best fighting proved thereby that its God was the greatest. Those races were more or less savage. But gradually better and better ideas took the place of the old ones. All those old ideas are gone or going into the lumber room. All those religions were the outgrowth of centuries. Not one fell from the skies. Each had to be worked out bit by bit. Next come the monotheistic ideas, belief in one God, who is omnipotent and omniscient, the one God of the universe. This one God is extra-cosmic. He lies in the heavens. He is invested with the gross conceptions of his originators. He has a right side and a left side and a bird in his hand, and so on and so forth. But one thing we find that the tribal gods have disappeared forever, and the one God of this universe has taken their place. The God of gods. Still, he is only an extra cosmic God. He is unapproachable, nothing can come near him, but slowly this idea has changed also. And to the next stage, we find a God immanent in nature. In the New Testament, it is taught, Our Father who art in heaven, God living in the heavens separated from men. We are living on earth and he is living in heaven. Further on, we find the teaching that he is a God immanent in nature. He is not only God in heaven but on earth too. He is the God in us. In the Hindu philosophy, we find a stage of the same proximity of God to us. But we do not stop there. There is the non-dualistic stage in which man realizes that the God he has been worshipping is not only the Father in heaven and on earth, but that I and my Father are one. He realizes in his soul that he is God himself, only a lower expression of him. All that is real in me is he. All that is real in him is I. The gulf between God and man is thus bridged. Thus we find how by knowing God, we find the kingdom of heaven within us. In the first or dualistic stage, man knows he is a little personal soul, John, James or Tom. I will be John, James or Tom to all eternity and never anything else. As well might the murderer come along and say, I will remain a murderer forever. But as time goes on, Tom vanishes and goes back into the original pure Adam. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Can we see God? Of course not. Can we know God? Of course not. If God can be known, He will be God no longer. Knowledge is a limitation. But I and my Father founded on the same ideas. Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within you. Again He says, Our Father who art in heaven. How do you reconcile the two things? In this way, He was talking to the undereducated masses. When He said the latter, the masses who were uneducated in the religion. It was necessary to speak to them in their own language. The masses want concrete ideas, something the senses can grasp. A man may be the greatest philosopher in the world, but a child in religion. When a man has developed a high state of spirituality, he can understand that the kingdom of heaven is within him. That is the real kingdom of the mind. Thus we see that the apparent contradictions and perplexities in every religion mark but different stages of growth. And as such, we have no right to blame anyone for his religion. There are stages of growth in which forms and symbols are necessary. They are the language that the souls in that stage can understand. The next idea that I want to bring to you is that religion does not consist in doctrines or dogmas. It is not what you read or nor what dogmas you believe that is of importance, but what you realize. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Yeah, in this life. And that is salvation. There are those who teach that this can be gained by the mumbling of words. But no great master ever taught that external forms were necessary for salvation. The power of attaining it is within ourselves. We live and move in God. Creeds and sects have their parts to play, but they are for children. They last but temporarily. Books never make religions, but religions make books. We must not forget that. No book ever created God, but God inspired all the great books. And no book ever created a soul. We must never forget that. The end of all religions is the realizing of God in the soul. That is the one universal religion. If there is one universal truth in all religions, I place it here in realizing God. Ideals and methods may differ, but that is the central point. There may be 1,000 different radii, but they all converge at one center. And that is the realization of God. Something behind this world of sense, this world of eternal eating and drinking and talking nonsense, this world of false shadows and selfishness. There is that beyond all books, beyond all creeds, beyond the vanities of this world, and it is the realization of God within yourself. A man may believe in all the churches in the world, he may carry in his head all the sacred books ever written. He may baptize himself in all the rivers of the earth. Still, he has no perception of God. I would class him with the rankest atheist. And a man may have never entered a church or a mosque nor performed any ceremony, but if he feels God within himself and is thereby lifted above the vanities of the world, that man is a holy man, a saint. Call him what you will. As soon as a man stands up and says he is right or his church is right and all others are wrong, he is himself all wrong. He does not know that upon the proof of all the others depends the proof of his own. Love and charity for the whole human race, that is the test of true religiousness. I do not mean the sentimental statement that all men are brothers, but that one must feel the oneness of human life. So far, they are not exclusive. I see that the sects and creeds are all mine. They are all grand. They are all helping men towards the real religion. I will add, it is good to be born in a church, but it is bad to die there. It is good to be born a child, but bad to remain a child. Churches, ceremonies and symbols are good for children. But when the child is grown, he must burst the church or himself. We must not remain children forever. It is like trying to fit one coat to all sizes and growths. I do not deprecate the existence of sects in the world. Would to God there were 20 millions more, for the more there are, there will be a greater field for selection. What I do object to is trying to fit one religion to every case. Though all religions are essentially the same, they must have the varieties of form produced by dissimilar circumstances among different nations. We must each have our own individual religion, individuals so far as the externals of it go. Many years ago, I visited a great sage of our own country, a very holy man. We talked of our revealed book, the Vedas, of your Bible, of the Quran, and of the revealed books in general. At the close of our talk, this good man asked me to go to the table and take up a book. It was a book which, among other things, contained a forecast of the rainfall during the year. The sage said, "Read that," and I read out the quantity of rain that was to fall. He said, "Now take the book and squeeze it." I did so, and he said, "Why, my boy, not a drop of water comes out? Until the water comes out, it is all book. So until your religion makes you realize God, it is useless. He who only studies books for religion reminds one of the fable of the ass which carried a heavy load of sugar on its back but did not know the sweetness of it. Shall we advise men to kneel down and cry, 'Oh miserable sinners that we are'? No, rather let us remind them of their divine nature. I will tell you a story. A lioness in search of a prey came upon a flock of sheep, and as she jumped at one of them, she gave birth to a cub and died on the spot. The young lion was brought up in the flock, ate grass and bleated like a sheep, and it never knew that it was a lion. One day a lion came across the flock and was astonished to see in it a huge lion eating grass and bleating like a sheep. At his sight, the flock fled and the lion sheep with them. But the lion watched his opportunity and one day found the lion sheep asleep. He woke him up and said, "You are a lion." The other said no and began to bleat like a sheep. But the stranger lion took him to a lake and asked him to look in the water at his own image and see if it did not resemble him, the stranger lion. He looked and acknowledged that it did. Then the stranger lion began to roar and asked him to do the same. The lion sheep tried his voice and was soon roaring and grandly as the other. And he was a sheep no longer. My friends, I would like to tell you all that you are mighty as lions. If the room is dark, do you go about beating your chest and crying, "It's dark, dark, dark"? No, the only way to get the light is to strike a light, and then the darkness goes. The only way to realize the light above you is to strike the spiritual light within you, and the darkness of sin and impurity will flee away. Think of your higher self, not your lower. So this was yet another amazing speech that was delivered by Swami Vivekananda. I hope this was valuable to you. And if you find content like this useful, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next video.